Hey guys, welcome back. It's the Ice Hockey Aussies here today to talk about the Steve Yzerman reign as the Detroit Red Wings GM. We've also got a special guest here today. We've got Anthony with us. He currently runs the Australian Red Wings fans Facebook page and the Detroit Red Wings community page on Twitter. You can find the links to both those pages in the description below. We definitely recommend you check those out. So yeah, I'll hand over to Anthony just to introduce himself, and yeah, go from there.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks for having me on. I've seen a bit of your work on YouTube already. Great work. And I'm excited to actually be on here. I've been pumped for this for weeks. So I had my notes prepped on the 30th of July and what is it now? The 5th of October. So we're finally here.
Things have changed, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So we're finally here. It's good. So yeah, admin and Australian Red Wings fans, don't just let the Australian part fool you. We actually do have people worldwide in there, so feel free to join. A lot of Michigan people in there as well, so it's good. And also the Twitter community, the Detroit Red Wings community on Twitter, X, whatever you may want to call it. Yeah, that's slowly growing every day. I think it's at 1,360 members. So every day I'm going on there and letting new people come in. So it'd be good just to boost that up before the season starts. I know there's plenty more out there. So join, guys, join.
Alrighty, awesome. Good to have you. Yeah, it has been a big time coming. We have just been going through that 32 team preseason list. Finally
Had
got
a
that.
couple of delays.
Finally got that done. So now, yeah, we're just going to be talking about Detroit. Maybe highlighting Steve Yzerman and his tenure. Seeing how Detroit go this year. With probably what looks like the best squad they've had since Yzerman's been in charge. And I'll
Yep.
probably my first question to you would be then, I guess, do you think this is Yzerman's make or break season? Like, does he have to make playoffs to keep his role, or?
Look, I don't say this is make or break. This is Detroit's best iteration of a team that they've put out since Osman's taken over since 2019. This isn't make or break. If you actually listen to his press conferences, really what he's doing is building a team that's going to be long standing once it makes playoffs and hopefully win cups inside that playoff window. So really, he's building a team that's going to be 10 plus years making playoffs and then winning cups in that. Um, yeah, it's not anything make or break. I think the people that are out there saying these kind of things are the people that are either don't follow Detroit or they're Toronto fans or
Yeah.
Toronto media
Oh,
people.
you can just understand like it's been going on 5 years after this year. So it is a long tenure, and if 5 years without playoffs, but for what he took over, it's acceptable on how long it's taken. And yeah, you look at like the age of the team. Besides basically Perron and Petrie, who have been brought in, there's pretty much a young team. Everyone generally under 30, and just with more picks to come. So he has built for the future. Uh, I guess my next question would be: do you think they make playoffs this year? Is it a playoff ready team with Ottawa and Buffalo also getting better?
I mean, it's going to be tough with those guys. I'd say they're probably ahead of us. Um, but you also have teams like Boston and Tampa, which they're still going to be good, but they're also
Yeah,
coming on the decline. For me, my hot take here. I mean, we were close and we were playing meaningful games into the last month of last year. I honestly, my hot take would be making the final wild card spot. I'd say. I wouldn't be surprised if once again we fell outside of that. But I'd say with the team that we've got and what I've currently seen too with the preseason games, it looks like scoring is up. It looks like they're not like just letting goals in, and it's not even really the full strength squad either. There's a lot of standouts at the moment as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they could actually push for wild card. So I think a lot of us, you know, people out there, they are getting a bit, what should I say?
Impatient,
You know,
probably.
yeah, a bit impatient with
Yeah,
how
being New
it's
Jersey
going.
Devils fan, and like 10 years we went through it, so it gets to the point that after 2 games in the season, you start yelling at your coach to get
Yeah,
fired.
well,
Um,
we're kind of glad that we're not in the Blashill era anymore.
yeah,
And we have Lalone. He's been fantastic, and it'd be good to see what he can bring this year, especially that it's his second year. And yeah, with the same team kind of under him, I think they'll know what his game plans and systems are now. So yeah, that's going to be my hot take. Final wildcard spot would be my hot take for that.
well,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think that's unrealistic at all. I think that the worst part for Detroit most likely is just how strong the Atlantic division is. I think that's the hardest thing. I think if you took out, maybe Buffalo and Ottawa's research that come back and they're getting back into playoff talks. And obviously you had the Boston and Tampa sort of slowly falling down. You might actually go, okay, well they're probably 3 or 4 in the Atlantic, but at the moment you got 7 teams that they're all going to be going after those 4. You might even say 5 playoff spots in the Atlantic, because I wouldn't be surprised if you see 5 teams from the Atlantic make it this year. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily going to come down to whether or not Detroit are playing good hockey or not. I actually think Detroit could be playing some really good hockey and still miss out in the playoffs, unfortunately. But I think for if I was Detroit fans, what I'd be looking for this season is probably what most Devils fans, including us, were looking for last year, and that was just to compete for a wild card spot. Now, obviously, Devils went and did other stuff, but as long as you're in the conversation right up until the end of the season, similar to what you were last season, but actually going on with it this season, I think if I was a Red Wings fan and you were in the hunt right up until the last few games of the season, I'd be a happy fan.
mm,
Um,
I agree.
yeah,
As long as like Yzerman doesn't pull out like he did last year. Yeah, season last year was kind of summed up by those last 2 Ottawa lost games.
Yeah,
That
like
pretty much called the season.
yeah, what I was about to say is really in the end, how that really actually panned out is as much as it sucked, those 2 Ottawa losses, that actually really did us a favour in the end on the
Yeah,
way, how the rest of the season panned out and who we ended up getting and what we did player wise. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, even though that we didn't make wild card. Hopefully it's this year. I don't expect them to make it and then have a massive push in the playoffs, but it'd be good for a bit of a taste and get some experience into them, and then hopefully drive them even more for the next season to make it, and then drive on from there.
alrighty.
yeah. I've got a question for you on the Yzerman sort of front. What is, in your opinion, what is his best trade so far? He's made 40 trades since being hired as GM. What stands out as his best acquisition so far?
Put me on the burner here. Uh, you know what? I'd have to say that the Brinket trade has to be one of the biggest that's happened. When we heard the
Yeah.
news and how long it dragged on for, honestly, I was at a point where I was thinking, you know what, this might not even happen now. Like, yeah, a lot of fans were like, oh, this might not even happen. And as you know, you can't get anything out of Yzerman. Yzerman keeps everything under lock and key, so you don't even know until like the actual like it drops and you see it on Twitter, and then you see yes, it finally happened. I reckon, yeah, I'd say that the Brinket trade would have to be like one of the biggest right now that he's done.
Yeah, look, I think that's probably the obvious one, but I also think it's probably correct. Looking through some of the trades he's done, he's made some big ones and he's made some really good ones as well. He's made a couple of ones that have raised some eyebrows, but haven't really done any damage in terms of long term. Generally, the player he got and the player he gave up sort of just aren't playing anymore. But I actually liked what he got in return for Tyler Bertuzzi. I know you know Bertuzzi's a relatively good player, but to be able to get a 2024 first round pick that is Boston's on what should be the decline, you would think for Boston, it could end up being a really good mid-range first round pick. So yeah, for a guy who has had some question marks, I thought that was a pretty reasonable trade return for him at the deadline. But yeah, there's been a few. I also like the fact that he's picked up, which is probably an underrated one, but Klim Kostin, for future considerations. Like, you've picked up a guy for free. Like, you've paid absolutely nothing for him, and I know he's not. Don't get me wrong, he's not, you know, your first, second line absolute superstar, but he's a big sized fourth line grinder who's going to put up some points, and he's still relatively young, who fits your team really well. It doesn't get looked at as much as the DeBrincat trade, but I you know, those sort of trades are what help build you know, your team for playoff runs, because you know that's the sort of player that you need in a playoff run, is a guy who's going to put on some hits. And
yeah, and with
yeah.
with Costin, we're really hoping that he's going to be, because you know, for the last couple of years, it's been, you know, someone's hit Larkin, someone's hit someone else, and we haven't really had that player that comes in and stands up. And we don't really need those kind of players going in and getting themselves injured. So I think Costin really, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be throwing his body around, hopefully protecting players. I'd say same with Sherratt. Rasmussen, he'll be one of those players too. He's been fantastic this preseason already. Yeah, with his injury last year, with his knee, but at least it wasn't anything major, and that's good. So now he's back. Be sure that you'll see him. He loves to get in a bit of a scruff. You'll see Sider get in there as well, which is fantastic, but he pretty much just stands there and laughs into people's faces. So fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some big bodied boys in that lineup. I mean, Rasmussen 6'6". Where's the other big guy? Soderblom. Yeah, like, he's 6'8". I remember, I think you traded the other guy out, but you had what was it, that fourth line last season that was 6'8", 6'6", and 6'7", or something like that. It was just absolute monster.
I think that was what we were calling that, the Redwood line, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was
I
just,
enjoyed watching that. I enjoyed watching that.
They walked out on the ice, and you're just like, oh,
yeah, you'd hate coming up the ice and seeing that on the blue line.
Yeah, absolute filth. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ, you would not want to come up against that. But that's, you know, that's sort of the other thing I think people underestimate is, you know, you look at the Vegas team that just won the Stanley Cup. Yeah, they've got some good players, but their team is just deep. It goes four lines. It goes it goes deep on the blue line as well. They don't just depend on one or two superstars to carry them over the line. And I think, you know, you touched on it in the intro, that's sort of what Yzerman's looking for, to build a full team rather than just getting a couple of superstars because they win the draft lottery or something like that. He's trying to stack it and stack it for years to come. So he's trying to get a specific age group, but he's also trying to get players that you know, will grind, will put their body on the line, will, you know, help the team going forward, not just trying to make a top six that will get you to the playoffs but will crumble once they're there.
Yeah, I mean,
i.e. Toronto.
For many years there, really, all that our scoring was the top six, and then there really wasn't any scoring from anywhere below that, which now I think, when you look at this year's team, I'd say that there's going to be scoring in every line. So yeah, when Yzerman took over this team in 2019, yeah, it was in such a bad state. I mean, it was loaded with aging vets. We didn't have really many prospects in the pool because we just ended up, you know, getting rid of them or using all the picks just to keep the streak alive. Yeah, as much as the streak was fantastic, it kind of burned us in the end, and this is why we're here where we are now. But I'd say that we're almost at the back end of that now, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel on this one. So we're getting close. I know people are getting impatient, but we're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah, with the way your team was burnt with the aging vets and just constantly trying to keep going for it. It's kind of what New Jersey did at 2012 onwards. With Lou Lamoriello, just kind of constantly getting older.
Islanders.
Yeah,
Islanders are doing
Islanders are
now.
doing it right now. That you're just constantly getting these older players, and then eventually you got nothing coming up, and then it capitulates, and it takes 5+ years to rebuild that because you need draft picks. Unfortunately for Detroit, you've been very unlucky with the draft picks with the lottery system. The unluckiest in the league. Like officially, I think they've lost 8 positions in the last 6 years. The next worst is Vancouver at 7, and then it's like -3. So very unlucky. I think it was 2020. You should like your highest odds to get first, and you dropped to 4th. So though you've done good with a lot of those draft picks, though with Raymond and whatnot and Rasmussen, it's still, it could have been a Heisha, Hughes, Owen Power, etc., Darlene. So do you think that's hindered you? Is the way the draft lottery system has worked?
I mean, it really hasn't been fantastic. And what you were saying before as well, just thought of something else. A team that's really going to go right down the spiral. Washington right now, they're in.
Oh yes.
They're in deep.
Oh,
And really, that's only to keep the Ovi streak alive.
Ovi will ruin that team for 10 years, unfortunately.
But with whatever podcast I was listening to today, they've literally burnt everything. They have no stocks in the cupboard. They're literally dusted. Yeah, look, we have to build from where we are. I mean, not all gems are first round picks. I mean, we have found gems in the first round that haven't been first round, like actual first pick of the draft. Datsuk, Zetterberg, those type of players ended up being absolute gems. Rasmussen, he's been fantastic. He's only getting better and he's getting fantastic now. Philip Zadina, wish him all the best, but he just didn't work out. And I think the fill the pucks with nets kind of thing kind of just burn him in the end. But you never know how he'll go over there in the Sharks. He might do all right. And the way the Sharks are looking right now, he might even be on the first line. So they're not too fantastic.
He very well could be. He very well could be.
Cider, absolute gem of a player. Like I said, not always the first pick of the first round. Cider has been fantastic. Lucas Raymond, fantastic. He's bulked on the weight this year that I've heard. So, more and better puck control for him. He'll be fantastic when this season kicks off. And also Casper, Evanson, and Soderblom. They've also been fantastic pickups as well, finding their way in. Another mention there would probably be Kosa, but he'd no doubtably be in Grand Rapids this year. And also kind of what I've heard, he might actually play second fiddle down there. I mean, supposedly the word was people weren't really happy with his performance in the prospect camp, but it's just prospect camp, like you can't take too much stock out of that. He does have potential there. We've all seen it. So we just got to see how he grows. And if he grows, he could be, Vasilevsky type goalie.
Well, he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be one of the best goaltenders in that draft. And, you did trade up for him. Ended up, I think you traded the pick that took Wyatt Johnston. So I still agree with the call. I still agree with what Yzerman did there, especially for what the potential that Kosa was showing. Look, he might have a little bit of a hiccup. I saw he played 3 AHL games, I think, last year and got absolutely lit up. But he's a young kid, and we all know goaltenders can take a bit of time to develop. So I'm sure he'll pan out in the long run. Just on the draft lottery sort of subject, it's funny because if you look at the 2019, you dropped 2 spots, you went from 4th to 6th, and in reality, that's probably a blessing in disguise because the 2 players who went before that were Bowen Byram and Alex Turcotte, who Bowen Byram's alright, but he's no Moritz Sider. So, like, he's and Turcotte, I don't even know if he's gonna make it in the NHL. So, it's I think the one that sucked was probably where you fell from 1st to 4th. But even that one, you look and go, if you to compare Lafreniere versus Lucas Raymond, you're probably taking Raymond at this point in
I'd probably
time.
say Lafreniere's developed better under Detroit. I would say
Yeah, well,
Lafreniere's probably a first liner
that's
at this
fair.
point if it was under a different team.
If he was under any other team but the New
Yeah,
York Rangers,
that wasn't mismanaging him. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you just hate to see it, especially this year just gone. What was it? Chicago finished dead last and ended up getting the first pick. We finished dead last.
It was the first time, isn't it, since the draft lottery that the best odds won it?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, something like that. And then, of course, we're all sitting back like, yep, typical. Yeah. Of course, it would happen. Because,
Everyone put their conspiracy hats on. I love just side note, but there was a guy who was doing interviews just in the Chicago streets, and he didn't know, but he was interviewing. He was walking up to random people about hockey, and he actually walked up to the GM of Chicago just on the streets, but he didn't know it was the GM, and he actually asked him if it was do you reckon it's a conspiracy that Chicago got the first round pick? And he's just like, no. But I thought that was quite funny.
Look,
But
as good as Bedard is, it's already becoming a Bedard jerk off fest. And
I'm over it already. Personally,
Yeah.
I was watching the highlights from one of their preseason games, and I could do a video on this myself. That there was 5 highlights for Bedard's miss, and there was only 2 highlights for a goal. And I was just like, well, the goal was good, but I'm watching 5 highlights for Bedard's miss and 2 for this goal. So it's getting.
Perry. Was that the Perry Taylor Hall one where Perry basically just
I can't remember off
deeks
the top
around
of my
the
head now.
goaltender? Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're talking about how good the Bedard shot was, even though he completely misses the net.
But
like that's going to burn him out in the end. Is like
well,
just
it burns me
Bedard
out.
this, Bedard that, Bedard this, Bedard that.
I love underdogs, and when you keep pushing someone so hard and hard, it makes me start wanting to go against them because I like the underdog story, just naturally.
Well, I think they're already touting him to be like the next better than Connor McJesus. So.
Yeah.
Well, they already got him in like. You go on.
I put a rant out that I did a quick short that I posted the other day about the Bedard situation. Like the guy's not even played a game yet. He's not even scored an NHL point at this point. He hadn't played even in a preseason game, and you had people putting him in the top 10, top 50 NHL players of the active players. It's like, how can you have a kid who hasn't hit the ice yet in the top 10 list of anything other than the top 10 best prospect? Like, he's not played a game yet. I just don't understand how you have him. Like, imagine being an NHL player that's put up 80 odd points in a season, and you have a kid who hasn't hit the ice yet for the first time, ranked higher than you in an NHL best players list. Like, it's just, it's insane.
It's kind of like, I mean, they're not in the same category, but it's kind of like how where at that draft, Zadina was so talked up, and then when it came to the actual thing, he just fell apart. I don't see Bedard falling apart, but I think people are just going to lay off talking them up. Yeah.
Well,
he's just a kid.
Well, the problem is the NHL is trying to because they're the smallest franchise out of like all the big sports in America. They're really trying to model off the NBA style of getting those hype players, the Michael Jordans, Kobe, and that brings in all the money and the revenue and the sales. And that's what they're trying to do with the players, with McDavid and Bedard. Unfortunately, you know, the game's different. You know, you got 5 players essentially for NBA, whereas hockey's what is it, 18 or whatever now? I actually just forgetting off the top of my head. But you got a lot more people on the ice, so you can't really model it like that. I understand the premise, but it's definitely a more team orientated sport.
Yeah, yeah.
Eh.
Another thing is good to see that you guys have practiced on your Yzerman talk right about now, and you got that right this time round.
Oh
Absolute,
yeah, mate. Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
absolute
Yeah,
filth
Yzerman.
when I heard it the
Yzerman.
first time. Yeah, I know. I was like, what is this?
I don't even know where that came from. As I said to you when that video came out, I'm like, oh, we know it's Yzerman. That was the worst part about it. It was just one of those things. I think before the
Yeah.
video started, one of us had said Yzerman, and then it just took off, and we just kept
Well,
saying
you're just
it, and then
focusing
we
on other things you don't know, and then because it's been said, you just continue on with it.
yeah, and then we just kept saying it, and then by the end of it, I saw that come up, and I went, "Did we really say Yzerman?" And like I looked over the video, and I went, "Oh no, we did too."
To
And
be
it was
fair,
too late.
I don't care as much because I'm really over like a lot of European and Russian names where like J's is pronounced with a Y, like
Yeah,
and whatnot. So at a certain point, I'm like, just spell your name how it sounds. That
Like,
would
it's
be that would be
like,
great.
like Arba Jacki?
yeah, yeah. Jaden's the poor bastard who has to read out the lineups every
Oh yeah,
video in the
but
32 team
it's like
thing. So
Shillington or whatever it is, but his name's like Kylington, like KYL, but it's like
yeah,
Shillington. And it's just
So
like
stupid.
there's no SH there, but it is what it is. But that's what you get with a lot of European and Russian players is just interesting ways to pronounce. Even players don't know how they want their names pronounced sometimes. So
Yeah,
that is a thing.
Who was that last year? They like it was pronounced one way, and they're like pronounce it this way, and then they're like, no, just go back to pronouncing it however you pronounce it because
I
we
can't
just take that.
remember
I can't remember who that was.
because the player
yeah,
finally came out and was like, "No, this is how my name's pronounced."
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
yeah.
But I guess we'll move
Oh,
back onto just Detroit. I just wanted to talk about just the defense that you guys have got there. Obviously, you've added Hull from Toronto, and then Petrie as well. Do you think they are good additions to solidify? I think Petrie is. I think everyone's a bit overhating him. Hull, even still, like statistically, is really good. It's just on ice, visually, he makes a lot of big errors that you can see. Do you think they'll get cleaned up in the Detroit system, or they'll just play their game and still have some sort of same mistakes?
Well, we'd hope to see that kind of stuff gets cleaned up. You know, I don't think people still now are happy with the whole um, the trade, but really all we can do is see until the season starts and see how it goes, and then and see how they play. Really, I'm not really going to make any judgment on that until like I see them play. I mean, you're playing different
Mm.
team, different system, different players, and they
And
have a lot to prove being on a different team. So
it might
I'm
take
not.
like half a season for him to kick into the system as well. I just think Petrie, or Petrie, I actually forget. I'm pretty sure it's Petrie. I just think he's getting overblown by how bad his season was last year, and it wasn't even horrible. But I think that's a really good pickup. You've got him also for 2 years, Hull for 3. There's some term on your team as well, which is good, especially with the youngsters. So you've really solidified a core, and I just worry about some of the UFAs you keep having to bring in every year because you're having to rotate the ones that are leaving, or trading because their contracts were coming up. So how do you think solidifying all these UFAs constantly like coming into the team? Do you think that's a little bit bad for the chemistry of the team, or it's not something to worry about?
Honestly, I don't think it's something to worry about now because you know we're still building and finding our way. So really, this core you're building the core around Larkin, Raymond, Cider, and around that you're building around those three. You know, we got to sign Cider shortly and Raymond shortly as well. I think the moves that we have and the players that we we got DeBrincat, Fisher, Sprong. He's also been fantastic in preseason. Comfer, Costin Hole, Ghost. I think he'll be fantastic in defense this season as well. I'm having a feeling that he might actually get paired up with Sider, hopefully, because that would be one heck of a defensive pair. Alex Lyon and then Reimer. I think Reimer is currently going to take that spot, and I think we're going to see Lyon drop down to GRG. But yeah, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think really we're kind of just waiting to pounce and make the big moves because what we've seen in the last couple of years, free agency hasn't really been fantastic. There hasn't really been, anyone
And now
fantastic in there.
the salary cap should be going up, so that adds up another extra cost on some of the free agents coming up, which is a little bit of a worry.
I think we're just waiting to pounce, to be honest.
I think so too. I think so too. I think your goalie situation is a little bit of a worry though. I don't know if Huso and Reimer are like the team that the duo that takes you to the playoffs and anywhere deep, like past or up to round 2 in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the way it's looking this year, I believe that we're going to be carrying 3 goalies by the look of it. I know Vasilevsky just went down, I believe. I think he's injured now.
Yeah,
so,
I think was it 10 weeks or
missed the start? Yeah, he missed the start of the season.
Yeah, so just say if we put Lyon on waivers, he ain't going to clear waivers. He's going to get taken. And there's other, goalie hungry teams out there as well. So I think we're going to just be carrying the 3. Yeah, I think it's not like we're putting all of our eggs in one basket for Kosa right now to be, the one that carries us. But we hope that he does pan out and becomes the goalie that we want to see, and that will be the guy that can carry us, long term.
All right, I guess, you got any questions for us? We've asked you a lot of questions. You got any questions for us besides how does it pronounce Yzerman and stuff like that?
So you guys are both New Jersey fans?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
20-ish
we've
years
gone through some a last decade of just horribleness, basically.
Although you guys are coming up now. I think you guys are going to be pretty good this season.
Well, we've gone through a decade of horribleness to basically favorites. In the span of basically a year almost.
It's hard to know how to feel, to be honest.
Yeah, and they haven't lost a preseason game this so far. It's preseason, whatever, but it's good to have a winning culture.
I mean, when I think back now, and even for you guys, it's kind of hard to think that you actually sat there and watched through absolute garbage.
Yep.
Oh, I would drop out after a certain point sometimes through the season. When like no matter that the on ice production wasn't even good to watch, so you'd be like you tune in for the game. Oh, already 4-0 down. All right, I'll actually watch a team that's good. And tune into a Tampa or something like that. But it is hard to be a fan when like Anaheim fans right now, Detroit fans that were Chicago, like when you have no prospects to cheer for, like nothing to really look forward to, it is hard to be a fan.
Yeah.
But
the thing I struggled with was it wasn't really once Fitzy took over, because he got a lot of hate for like a 10-year rebuild and it's taking forever at the start of last season. But it's like the guy had only been in the helm for like 3 years or something like that, 2 or 3 years. And that's when the rebuild started. The part that I struggled with as a Devils fan was Lou and Shiro era, where they wanted to be relevant, and we made the playoffs in 2017 or whatever when we drafted Hisha, but it was for nothing. Like there was no future. There was no. It's not like you said before about Detroit building a team to go forward with and to be good for a long period of time. It was none of that. So I was watching a team that just sucked, even though they made the playoffs once. that it sucked and there was no future to it, and it was so frustrating because it's like this team's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Which is why, like, when I look at the likes of the way New Jersey's done it, Detroit's done it, um, even
Arizona's
Buffalo
doing it.
as well. Arizona's doing it. And you can look at Tampa and the successful ones, Pittsburgh, Chicago. They've gone to the draft. They've sucked for a period of time, but they've stuck to a plan. Yeah, you can argue that Pittsburgh and Chicago were sort of handed Jonathan Tays, Patrick Kane, Sidney Crosby, and the likes of that. But the Devils the same. Heisha and Hughes. Buffalo got Darlene and Power. But when you follow that system and you sort of go to the draft and you build that team from below, you have longevity and you generally have some sort of success, whether it's cups or really, really long playoff stints. Whereas in some of these other teams that are just trying to hold on to something that's not there, or they're trying to, instead of going for rebuild, I think Vancouver, perfect example. Like, we talk about the miseries of, Devils and Detroit as of late, Buffalo fans. What about Vancouver? They're going nowhere anytime soon. And, they're still got the same problems as they've always had. Like, they finally get some draft picks, everyone's really happy, and then they trade for Hronik from you guys. They give you their first round draft pick. Like, it's yeah, I think the way Detroit is doing it, and Yzerman's doing it, is he's looking to the draft as well. He's trying to make sure the players he brings in are going to be there for the long
Not many
term.
organizations get the chance to do what Eisman's doing though. Like the owners, not the general managers, the owners don't give the leeway for the GM to make the call for a rebuild. It's either you got to keep going for it. So I feel like Eisman's got a little bit of leeway in that regards, and that's helped because you need that. The GM needs the freedom to make the right call, even if it's bad for business. In quotation marks or something like that, because you're gonna suck for a little bit. But you need to draft well, and it's not even first round. You got to get the second and third rounders to be NHLers at somewhere in your depth pool, and I think Detroit's doing that well. I think Eisman's got a good eye for youth, and I think New Jersey's got one of the best eyes for youth as well with their picks. So I think that's a key as well. That is a little bit unsung. Jesper Bratt was like a sixth rounder, so and now he's getting paid 8 million or whatever it is. So
Yeah. I believe that we have one of the best depth pools in the league at this current time. So, Osman, he's done work, and we all know when it comes to the freedom for, like you were saying, making moves and making deals. Well, that Osman, he goes to a player and says, "Well, it's going to be this much, and I'm not budging." So you either come to the party, or we're just gonna end it there, because he's done that before, and that he did it in Tampa as well, and he did it with Stamkos. So he's just that type of person. He's real business minded, I believe. So
you got to run it like a business because you got a salary cap, you got a budget to limit
It's not.
yourself
It's
to.
not just. It's not just that as well. It's like once you start getting players doing what sort of like Austin Matthews has done and taking 13.25 and a massive chunk of the salary, you start to really struggle with the cap in where else it can go. So like you said with the Stamkos situation, he's a superstar. He could have taken a lot more money than what he did, but Eisman just went, nah, like this is what your offer is. You can hit free agency if you want. We want you to stay here. You're the captain, and eventually he agreed to it. And it's like what Boston have done, and they were so good at it, is team friendly contracts and getting everyone to buy in. Dylan Larkin for 8.7 mil, is a fantastic pickup. 8 years, he's your captain. He's going to be around for a long time. He's putting up basically a point per game. That contract in 3 years' time is going to look like a steal, because the cap's going up. He's going to still probably be around that point per game. He's either going to be your first or second line center for quite some time. And, when that talk was all coming out, that was looking like it could have been a $9.5, $10 million contract. So, yeah, you got to give credit to him, but it also it feeds down to the rest of the players when a player like Dylan Larkin signs for a contract like that.
Well,
And I wish more GMs were like Yzerman in that sense of, like you don't want to be a team player and you want to take more than your fair share, then hit the free agency, or we'll trade you out.
With the Stamkos one, he does have a little bit more leeway, being Tampa has less tax, so they get more of their money back compared to like a lot of Canadian teams and even New Jersey and New York City teams where the taxes are ridiculous. So that does play a bit into it, but I think he's done really well in regards to DeBrincat under 8, or basically 8, and like they're your two basically most expensive players, and they're under 10 million. And sure, we had last year the first ever player to win a cup that was 10 million plus contract with Jack Eichel, and I think that shows where the salary cap is. That you basically have 10 million or less, and so far Detroit have that. It will be interesting to see what the likes of Cider and whatever get when they do their new contracts. But at the moment, it looks alright. You're kind of flirting with the salary cap a little bit, Detroit. That it could get into worries depending on how much Cider take, Raymond and whatnot. Even a Sprong if he went bang for whatever reason. So you are flirting with it, but you got such good assets. I feel like it's easy to flip or move.
Yeah, with that, look, if that was me, I would want to be hoping to lock up Cider as long as I can for a solid price. But, he might just come in and be like, all right, I want to, bank on myself.
Yeah,
And
do
I
a
want
Matthews.
short term, yeah.
Mm.
And then it's just going to drive his price up even more, which, that's fine.
It starts a culture though, because then other players start doing that. You don't want that culture in your organization. You want those teams like, all right, I'm here for 8 years, like I'm committed to this team. I'll take a no move clause for half my thing, then you can trade me for the last 4 or something like that. Because you want players to stay.
I think the way it's going, I think Cider will command more of a price than what Raymond will. I believe Cider will get a higher pay than what Raymond will. I mean, we'll see how the season goes, but Cider is just one of those diamond in the rough defensive players.
The problem is he's a defender, and defenders don't get paid. It is actually the stupidest thing. You got some of the best players like Adam Fox and whatnot, like the best player, like top 10 players in the league, McCarr, and they just get nowhere near the Austin Matthews type contract, which is a bit stupid, and it's just purely because position.
I was watching some old games a couple of weeks ago, and really heading into the season, I'd like to see Cider actually do more of what Lidstrom did, and like get it down to him, and actually just rip off slap shots at the net, because you never know. You got people screening. You'd have people like Rasmussen down there screening the net. Like, I reckon he could draw more goals if he actually did that.
That's the benefit of big bodies in front, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really seemed like he was a pass first player last season. Before he shoot, I'd like to really actually see him shoot more, because I think he'd actually score more goals. And what I've been here, I haven't really watched too much preseason, but what I've been hearing and how they've been setting up the umbrella, really teams that have been playing us, they've been putting majority of their focus on DeBrincat, and then they've been leaving Raymond, Larkin, Cider open, and not compensating for them, and then it's kind of a bang bang play, and then we get a goal. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic this season, because I believe it's going to be Larkin, Raymond, Cider on the first. Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat on the first line. So it's going to be amazing.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, if teams are going to keep doing that, where they're going to put all their focus on DeBrincat, which you think they're,
It's pretty
Did
stupid to
adjustment.
do with like a Larkin still on the ice.
Yeah.
But I get your point completely. I think that Sider could take a book out of like Hamilton or something book on working on his shot. I think he has it in him to have that, that above the circle type of shot that goes through. It's just I feel like it's one of those things that you take a full off season to focus on. Like that's purely what you focus on. It's kind of like how Hughes has developed for New Jersey, where they literally just focus on one aspect of the game, whether it's board work, face-offs, etc., and then they just become elite in that area. And I feel like Sider, as a defenseman, you've always got to focus on your D, like first, like in my opinion, first foremost. But I reckon if he worked on his shot, because he's got a great pass, you just got to get that
Oh,
shot.
yeah. And he's good at shutting down as well. So he's only getting stronger and better as, the seasons go on. So, yeah.
I'll put this to you. You are Steve Yzerman right now. You bring Sider in. You're offering him a contract. What are you offering him? Where is your maximum offer for Sider?
What's Larkin on now? 8.5. I mean, you almost would think that you wouldn't want to pay him more, but it looks like he would actually drive more than what Larkin. Just in me, I'd say like 8 by 9.5.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't think he should be going 10 mil plus. Although it depends. If he has an absolute lights out season this season and the cap at the end of the year when that contract comes up for negotiation, you could argue maybe 10 mil. But right now, as it is, I would be saying anything under 9.5 over the 8 years would be a steal. I wouldn't want to do a bridge deal with Sider. I think if you go bridge, you're opening yourself up for an 11, 12 million plus contracts when he comes out of it in the 3-4 years down the track. So I think you're on the money there.
Oh, yeah, depending
you
how
know
much it goes up next year, I'd probably say 9.5 to 10 mil over 8. I think you'd pretty much hard sell 8 no matter what is the term. You want to lock that up for the long as possible, and that takes him to what 30 or whatever it is. So
and then you'd probably have Raymond probably about 7.75.
depending how
Yeah,
this season goes, yeah.
And you'd want to see them both for 8 years as well. I hope for your sake and all Red Wings fans' sakes that you can lock them both up for 8 years, because if you can you've obviously got Larkin already. DeBrincat's obviously on that weird 4-year contract, but if you can get Sider, Raymond, and then obviously Larkin, who's already locked up long term, that's 3 big core pieces locked up long term. And then you've just got to grab the rest of your sort of youth that's coming through. Obviously, I mean, I think you got Rasmussen coming out of contract as well as an RFA. Get him signed up, whether it's long term. I don't think you probably need to do him long term. Depending on what season he sort of puts together, maybe you do look at doing a longish contract. But I think that's first and foremost. If you can get Sider and Raymond locked up over 8 years for reasonable contracts that you're not sort of blowing out of the water. I guess that begs to the question: do you try and sign them now rather than the end of the year?
That'll be interesting. I'm going to see how that one plays out. I think this year, I think the signing will come down to how the way the season goes. I don't know if he'll pull anything during the season. Even then, it might be before around the deadline, because that's kind of a see where you are kind of thing. How the season's panned out. Like you were saying. I mean, Larkin, Sider, Raymond. They're the 3 guys that we're building the team around. And then you're going to have Casper, Nate Danielson. He's been going absolutely stellar in the preseason game so far. Unfortunately for him, I think he's going to end up back in the dub the way it is. So yeah, they're the three guys that you're building around, and you definitely want to lock those guys up long term. Yeah, I honestly feel that if it's a bridge is probably going to end up hurting us in the end because, yeah, like you said, it's going to end up driving up that cost to 10, 12 mil. I mean, I know the cap's going up, but, we also need that cap for, getting ourselves and getting players into a position where we're competing in the playoffs.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the point now that you're starting to like the eye is now it's playoffs. Like that is the eye. It's no longer really like we're rebuilding to get better. It's kind of like we're going for playoffs. Would you say you're at the point of like starting to trade some of your picks away for some more assets? Not going down like the Florida path where you're trading out all your first rounders, but a first rounder in the future here or there.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. We'll see how we go when we get to the deadline. Depending where we are, I don't think we're going to be at that seller's market again. I think we're going to be, buying. Not that it's going to, drive us to the point where, we're going to get to playoffs, we're going to do something. I think we're just going to be looking at getting the players that are going to continue helping us season over season. I mean, see how we go. Off the top of my head, I don't know if we, have anyone that would be moving. Kind of, unless we're at that point now that we're not here where we're not going to be finishing low enough for to be picking in the top 5. We're gonna be ending up picking in the teens this season onwards, I reckon. So I think we're gonna have to start moving some of those picks for assets. To start driving us further ahead.
Off players and Yzerman are one of the biggest pushers for you this season. Derek Lalonde, do you reckon he's the man to do it this year, and into the future? Like, do you like his system, the way they play? It's his first head coaching role outside of assistant coach from Tampa Bay. So, do you think he's the man to do it, or?
Look, the season that he had last year, even though it was his first year and the players still getting all their systems in check, you could see on the on ice product how much things have changed under Lalone compared to what it was to Blashill. And I think this year, another season under him, and now that the players know the system, I think it's going to be better. I mean, even now in the preseason, it's already showing where, I mean, it's only preseason, I know, but it looks like we're in games and scores, we're not getting blown apart. I mean, it's only a selected few teams that we've played, but we're there with teams keeping up the scoring. So I think that, I think he'll be the man that can get us further ahead. I mean, Yzerman would not have picked him if he doesn't think himself that he's going to be a man that can drive us further when we get into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. And he does have like that playoff experience with being assistant coach with Tampa. So even though he hasn't done it as the head man, at least he's got some sort of experience with it. So he's not a full rebuild coach that you see with some of these teams where they just have a coach purely for the rebuild, and then they fire him just before they get good. So
I mean, in the end, there was a lot of hate for Blash. I think just because year over year we just kept going with him. But it kind of sucked as well because really when he took over the team, it was a team of nothing as well. And then he pretty much, had it from building players, mix and mingle players that we had to bring in just to keep a team going. So it was kind of a love-hate. Like, you loved him, but you kind of hated him at the same time, and you felt bad for him when he finally left just because what he had to deal with. But I guess that's just the nature of the game, and that's just the way it went. But yeah, there's full belief in Lalone, so we'll see how this season goes.
all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you guys are pretty much geared up, as we've said in this video so far. I feel like if you were to put this Detroit team in one of the Western divisions, it probably wouldn't be a question of will they make playoffs. Will they be competing for playoffs? It'd be a definite. Can they get a top three? Because some of the Western, especially the Central, I think this
Central's
year
very weak.
looks really weak in terms of you've got a Colorado without Landeskog again. Dallas is probably your only out and out favorite. Minnesota is, probably a year or two off of really going for it once they free up that 15 mil cap space. Nashville is in that no man's land. St. Louis is in that no man's land. Then you've got Arizona and Chicago who are rebuilding. So you put Detroit in that division, and you're probably sitting there going, well, they should probably be looking at third, maybe first or second wild card spot guaranteed. I definitely feel like you guys will be there, whether it's this season. It'll be coming either in the next 2 or 3 years. So yeah, I mean, I guess put it to you, by the sounds of the way you've spoken about him in the video, I think it's going to be pretty positive. But Steve Yzerman, has he been as good as what a lot of people have said, or are you with those few who are sort of going, no, he's going nowhere?
All I'm going to say is believe in the Yzerplan. That's all you got to do. Believe in the Yzerplan.
It's just it's a cult at this point. They just believe. There's no. I'm kidding.
And like you're saying, really, the Atlantic is probably one of the hardest divisions in the whole of NHL at this point in time. So
100%.
It's going to be tough this season. Like, we're fighting against Buffalo and Ottawa because, they're coming up the ranks as well. You still got Boston. They're probably still going to be around, even though they're like kind of on their way down. Tampa, they're still going to be up there, even though they're on the way down. And then you got Toronto. Well, they're going to probably still be flying for a while now as well. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult. I feel like I'm missing someone else in that.
Florida.
Florida.
And Montreal.
Montreal was pretty much guaranteed last. Nah, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but it's almost guaranteed last. Almost.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be Toronto, Florida, 1-2, I'd say.
Yeah. Florida didn't have a good
question marks around Florida because they're
I
not going to have. I think is it Ekblad who's not going to be back until about. Yeah, he's not due back until about November. I think there was another guy. Was it Montour who they reckon would be right?
by somewhat start of the season, but also even Kachuk, with the injury he had during the playoffs, you still got to bounce back from that. Even though you can play, you still got to bounce back. I personally
had a shocking season.
Yeah, I personally my 1-2 is probably Toronto, just because regular season's completely different to playoffs, as coached by the referees, and that's why Toronto's got a really good regular season team, and I feel like they'll probably just cap off with that again. And my number 2, honestly, I think Ottawa. I think Ottawa will surprise a lot of people. I think Ottawa's going to surprise a lot of people. And they'll be at number 2. Honestly, it all depends on if or how much Boston fall. They've got to come down, but how far from grace do they fall? Do they really drop out of the playoffs after the run they had? It's easy to see that they could. And obviously, you got Florida, who had a horrible season up and down last season until the playoffs. And then they got the injuries to go with it. So I think it's open for Buffalo and Detroit to, especially early on in the season, while teams are bouncing back from injuries, to secure it. So I think the first 20 to 40 games is very key for these Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo. And if anyone slags a little bit, I feel like that could be almost season ending just in that short stint.
We all know that Toronto is doomed for the next 19 years to fall out of the second round now, right? Yeah. 19 years of first round is going to be 19 years of the second round.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, with the new Matthews contract coming in, and the probably looking highly likely loss of William Nylander, I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto has a bit of a capitulation in the next couple of years.
I reckon they will.
I think people feel like Toronto is going to go for a lot longer than I actually believe they will. I think Toronto, with that Matthews signing, is probably heading towards the end of their, I guess,
Well,
regular season
he's in it
domination.
for the money, and unfortunately, like you want to win the cup at the end of the day. Like, as good as Florida's run last season was, at the end of the day, we're like, oh, it's a great run, but Vegas won. Like, and nobody's talking about Toronto or New York Rangers, New Jersey Islanders, like who bailed out earlier on. Even Carolina, who conference final. Like, it's just all about winning the cup, and that's pretty much it. And yeah, I just don't think with the Matthews, with the way he does it, I don't think they will win a cup under him.
You just can't be that player that commands majority of the cap, because you see the teams that were, say, McDavid, he gave up money on the table to get other players in to keep the team good. You know what I mean? Like, I think being selfish and greedy is going to end up burning you in the end.
Oh yeah, I think anything over 10 million, and then you're being greedy. Obviously now the salary cap's going up, so it's probably going to be around the 11 million mark or something like that when the new caps come in. I'm looking like a Pasta. Pasta I would rate better than Matthews, and I would like draft over Matthews personally if I was building a team, and he's getting 2 million less. And that's fourth liner slash bottom third liner, or second pair D right there, or backup goalie.
It's your Klim Kostin or your Daniel Sprong that Yzerman signed. And they're two really good fourth line players.
You need depth,
obviously on Detroit
and
this year.
Toronto don't have depth. Detroit's looking like they're really building out their depth. Their D's looking really good now. The offense is building out that depth. I think just the goaltending, that's the area that needs to fix. Obviously, you got prospects coming up, but is it going to be the right timing of when they hit the market to when Detroit you want to go for it, or do you have to go out and I don't even like where you got Hellebucks, Allmarks, Swaymans, like the type of player that you could go for that I can think of that would be marketed. But if you don't go for one this year, then the goalie market's completely different next year.
Yeah, like I said, I think the free agency is market's meant to be better this year. So I think that that's what we're really gonna wait until. It was a bit of a bummer, and people were bummed out that we didn't keep Yamamoto. But I think it was one of those handshake kind of deals. I think that just freed up cap space for an old friend in Ken Holland. So I believe that's all that was really. But it would have been a good addition, but unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. So
I would have liked to see him
get Costin over the line.
I would have liked to have seen him stay. I thought it was a really good pickup for free, or for future considerations.
Well, that was the incredible thing about it. You picked up two real good sort of depth players, really, and Yamamoto, if he hits his strides, could potentially get up to that second line. And to get him for nothing, it was one of those real question marks when he did buy his contract out. I thought, I really did think he'll at least give him a chance.
Yeah, I think that.
Well, he only had 1 year left as well, didn't he? So
yeah, what was going around? I think he actually didn't want to be there, but which is a bit of a bummer, because when you look at the team now, like with DeBrincat, like, and all that, you think he would have fit in nicely. So
yeah, small skill. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to be a part of Detroit right now? Like, you've just pulled him DeBrincat, who's obviously a incredible goal scorer. You've got Dylan Larkin. You've got a good prospect pool. I think the Athletic has Detroit's prospect pool ranked at number 8, which is really solid. So if you go to a Detroit, you're going to be playing with some real young talent for several years. and not to mention under some really good leadership with your GM as Yzerman. So
Well, exactly.
yeah, if that's the case, and he didn't want to be at Detroit, yeah, I'd be asking some questions, to be honest.
I mean, and we're one of those teams that we're finally starting to make our way up again. So you would think, maybe this year, maybe into next season, that players would look like a destination team that you'd want to come to, because you know that we're on their way up, and we're going to start making pushes. So you'd think that players would be like, all right, I want to go there because they're on the way up. It seems like a good destination that I'd like to go to.
I think some players are very short-sighted, and then some players are very long-minded in that regards. Like Dougie Hamilton signing free agency with New Jersey when New Jersey weren't fully there yet. Like you see, Andre Palat, like they see what's coming and then they do it. But then you got players that won't go to a team that's coming up purely because they just want to go to, like, I want to win this year. And I think that's very short-minded. It's very hard to predict that team. Tampa obviously did it twice. Like Patrick Maroon did it perfectly. St. Louis to Tampa. So it is really hard to get those players. I don't know what else you add to this team though. Like what would you go out and add right now? I think you got 5 million in cap space for a 1-year UFA. If you were going to do it, like where do you add to make?
I mean, just off the top of my mind, I'd leave it the way it is right now. I wouldn't even be touching that 5 million. I'd be keeping that in the bank.
Okay, no, that's fair. I just
I'd be
meant like
keeping that bank.
yeah, I think it's better to do that anyway, especially a trade deadline. And then with all the contracts you have to sign next year. But I was just thinking if you could get a 5 million player, to help bolster the team. I'm not sure where else you could add besides maybe if you did something crazy and did a Hellebuck or Mark type trade.
I mean, really, right there, we need like another depth center. That's something that probably comes to mind.
Okay.
That's what we really need, is another depth center. I'd have to have a look at the thing. I know we were lacking really in right-handed defensemen as well. We seem to have had stacks of left-handed defensemen, which didn't really help. I think we only had 1 or 2 right-handed defensemen.
Well, Petrie and Hull that came in
3
are
now.
right defense.
Yeah, so we've bolstered that up because we were stuck with all lefties. So they were the 2 really main, was centre and right-hand D, that we were really needing. Goalies, well, I think they'll be fine. I mean, you don't really want to go out and be pumping mass money into a goalie, and we're not really ready to contend yet. That's the kind of thing you'd be waiting until we're contending, really.
I agree with you on that front. And that $5 million, you can really sort of. I know off air you were saying, there's talks about you guys being in it for William Nylander. I think if that was true, I would be okay with jumping on a player like that, because a player like that with his caliber, 100%, it'd have to be a trade and sign. But other than that, there's it's not really worth going out and blowing 5 million just to blow 5 million. You may as well wait and see where you're at come deadline day, or round deadline. And if you're really really competing, like you've pretty much thrown up a playoff spot, or you guys are just performing extremely well, where it's looking like very unlikely that you miss playoffs, then I'd sort of start considering going after someone, going after a rental, maybe going after 1 or 2 rentals just to sort of bolster that attack. Maybe then you get sort of your depth center for a playoff push. But outside of that, yeah, I agree with you. I think just leave it, unless it's an out and out superstar. Then you could consider it.
Was there anything else you wanted the cover that we haven't covered so far?
I mean, yeah. I mean, what we were saying before, and like you were saying, Nick, about having 5 million there and not just blowing it. I mean, all you got to do is just listen to Yzerman and his presses as well, because he says the exact same thing. He's like, just because the money's there doesn't mean I'm going to go out and spend it. And I think for anybody that, is still in doubt about the Yzerplan, really, all you got to do is actually sit there and listen to his presses and listen to what he has to say. And yeah, that's the general thing that he's got, going on, is he wants to build a depth team that's going to be long lasting going into the playoffs. And, we're not going to blast everything in right now just to make the playoffs for nothing to happen.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah,
I think he's honestly like pretty much well, not every, but a lot of NHL fans that play like EA NHL games and do the franchise mode, like the way he approaches it is kind of how similar to how a lot of fans approach rebuilding a team, and you don't see that in comparison to a lot of other GMs. And I feel like that's why this team will be successful over the next, honestly, probably 10 years. You could see because of how the prospect pool has panned out, and then obviously the salary cap going up at probably a good time for all the re-signings as well. So honestly, all the stars are kind of aligning for Detroit at the right time. Toronto, kind of staying where they are. Boston dropping out, Tampa dropping out. Florida being good, but we'll have to see how they do regular season. It just seems stars are aligning for Detroit. It's kind of like the New Jersey, with Pittsburgh and Washington dropping out at the same time, and then New Jersey and Canes probably on their last legs as well. So it honestly, Detroit, New Jersey, Colorado, all these teams from the early 2000s that were successful are coming up again at the same time.
And I mean, another thing with that as well is we just got to hope that all the prospects that we currently have now in the pool actually all pan out, because we'd be in a bit of strife if they don't pan out. It's going to probably set us back. So we just hope that these guys actually do pan out the way they do. And yeah, you just don't want to keep diving into the market and just grabbing players all the time, just trying to keep the team going. So
yeah, but that comes down to your developmental coaches, and with the likes of Sider and Raymond and Rasmussen coming through, and you've seen even Larkin. Like he was. It's not like you traded for him. He's you drafted him. You've brought him up. So your team's been able to develop some talent. So I have no doubt that most of those, not all of them are going to pan out. Like some of them are going to flop, and that's Kosa. He might flop, but I feel like with what we're seeing with Detroit, majority of those players are going to pan out for you, because I feel like they've just got that. They've just got good coaches and good structures to actually do it. New York Rangers have done it with a couple of players in terms of like Fox, I think, but they're the complete opposite. They've just got terrible luck when it comes to trying to develop their young talent, as you've seen with Lafreniere and Capo Caco and the countless others that have gone through there. But yeah, so you're correct. Your prospects do need to turn out, but I feel like the structure you've got at Detroit, your likelihood of it turning out is a lot higher than them flopping.
Well, it's just assets, right? Like you got to have value of assets, and you've got all your picks still besides your first, but you got Boston's, and all of these quality players, quality prospects, that even if they're not going to sort of pan out, they're somewhat flippable, and that's the key with Detroit, is that their value as an organization, as a structure, has really gone up, and so it's easier to get bang for your buck now.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot of stock in the cupboard. So it'll be interesting to see how we go. So this season, I've been pumped for this season since even before preseason started. So probably even when the Brinket trade happened, I've been pumped ready for this season. So I'm glad it's only a week away now. So
Crazy to think.
yeah, it'll be good to see how we go this season. I know a lot of people, on Twitter and even in our group, they're like keen as to see how this season goes. So, yeah,
It's how we were last year. We're even more keen for it this year as well. just as New Jersey fans, for how the hype is there. Detroit, honestly, I feel like it's going to go to all 82 games. I don't feel like you're going to bail out like you did last year. And that's the thing, you got a full season to watch now. Full 82 games you get to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we were still playing meaningful games in that last month of the season last year, and I reckon it'll probably be the same this year, and it'll be even more. You know, I mean, last season, even though we were like hovering in and out of that wild card spot, it was exciting for us. Like we had something genuinely to be excited about. So this season now we have that as well. So if we have that same kind of thing going on, we're going to be pumped throughout the season, and hopefully we're still playing meaningful games until towards the very end. If we make it or not, hopefully it'll still be like as good as last season, and hopefully we make that push for the wild card and give those boys some actual experience of playoffs. Give them their first taste and give them the drive.
Yeah, it'd be amazing to see. I'd love to see Detroit back in the playoffs, and who knows, you might even see a Devils v Detroit first round of the playoffs if the Devils can repeat what they did last year and Detroit can snag one of those wild card spots.
Or if that happens, we'll have to do a video.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
100%. We'll definitely have you back on. But yeah, I've got nothing left. I'm quite happy to wrap it up here. If you lads don't have anything more.
I'm good,
No.
boys.
No, that's good. Anthony, if you want to shout out your socials again.
Oh yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. Like I said, Australian Red Wings fans on Facebook. Join that group. It is a worldwide group, so feel free to join. The Detroit Red Wings community on Twitter or X. You can jump on there as well. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm pretty much on all socials as well under Ando77. So you can find me on there as well. Or even on Twitter, I'm under Anthony Polifrone. It doesn't even spell my whole last name on there because it just cuts out the characters. So it's kind of stops at some weird letters. So you can find me on those. And yeah, pumped for the season, boys. And I know you guys will be pumped for New Jersey. I think they're going to go pretty well this season as well. And I think in my listings, I think I made them down to make the playoffs this season as well. So there's a lot of hype around them that I've been hearing on other podcasts as well that I've been listening to. So
no, it's good. We'll welcome you back. And no, it's good to have you shout out your people there. You got anything else to say, Nick?
Just remember that, yeah, both of those links will be in the description below.
Yep.
So, yeah, click those links and give them a follow and join those pages.
Easy, guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll definitely do it again sometime soon, especially if that little playoff match does happen. But yeah, feel free to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below on what you think the future for the Detroit Red Wings are and how this season will go. But until next time, catch you guys.
see you, boys.